Yesterday, several things happened that made me want to return to one of my favorite topics of reflection, the double-edged sword of memories. Um, First of all, I spent the day with my daughter, and it was an enjoyable day, but one of the things that happened was that in the playground backyard, at one point she just kind of stopped and started thinking about the past, playing with her brothers and sisters, or half siblings, and not being able to do so anymore because of my personal circumstances. And I could feel the sadness creep over her, how she missed them, and it made me sad for her, but also for myself. I've had a lot of bitterness in the past about feeling deprived of seeing my kids, and those memories that I have of being all together, they're painful. At the same time, they're bittersweet because, they're happy memories. Then on top of that, my daughter and I were playing ping pong in the basement, and one time the ball fell down, and I bent over and I saw this old autograph book. It's from my 8th grade graduation, and just made me go through those briefly with her. First of all, I noticed that of the 30 or whatever so autographs or little messages in there, they were all basically guys. And it made me kind of think about my own past and issues with women, and my desire since childhood to have that kind of intimate relationship with the opposite sex, and being kind of socially awkward, especially with girls in my past, and that kind of setting the stage for a lot of things that followed. And then finally, there were also some old pictures that I hadn't seen in a long time, grouped together down there, and I saw some pictures of my family, my cousins and brother and sister, and happier times. Well, happier on some level, because without these complications with my adult life, or more adult life, and all of us together kind of, like I said, brought me back to this topic of memories. That on the one hand, I want to savor these memories of the past. There are a lot of happy memories, but it's easy for people to get stuck in the past and not be able to move beyond that. I think of, on the one hand, the positive side of memories. Someone like Proust comes to mind, where the focus is on how these memories kind of almost give him this continuity with the past, that it's never really dead. But on the other hand, you have traumatic memories associated with things like PTSD, so you want to remember certain things, and yet you want to forget other things. And I think you have to find a happy medium there, the middle road, so to speak. We want to preserve the past. This explains, our obsession with things like Facebook, or even just writing. I don't think it's an accident that people like Socrates or the Buddha themselves never wrote anything, because I think they realized that life is lived in the present, and to write something down to try to preserve the past is it's impossible ultimately. On the other hand, you have this fact that they are part of us, that you can't just obliterate them and forget them. One of the maybe most horrifying aspects of something like Alzheimer's is that it completely dissolves that sense of identity. It's not like that identity doesn't exist. It is and it isn't, because it's ultimately a function of our minds. We create these identities for ourselves, and they can easily be destroyed through a horrible disease like Alzheimer's. But at the same time, to obsess over them and hold on to them, something like a phenomenon like hoarding comes to mind. I think hoarding is a function of people wanting to hold on to everything and not being able to let go. of anything. That there's a reason. I think people don't constantly or daily look at photo albums of the past, or shouldn't. It's good to have these memories, but to obsess over them is a very unhealthy thing. And we want to hold on to these things because of our egos. They preserve our egos, and sometimes even the negative, traumatic memories are things that we can't help but hold on to because it preserves our sense of self, our continuity over time. But to lose that altogether is very distressing. But to obsess over that at the same time shows an inability to see the reality of the constant change in life. So I think it's important to find this happy medium where one is able to savor the past without becoming attached to it. To not deny that it exists, because it does. At least for those of us who aren't crippled with something like Alzheimer's, that they're part of us. But at the same time, if you can't let go, then you're stuck, and you're going to be unhappy. So also somewhat in relation to this, there was an incident yesterday where I went to the grocery store with my daughter and my mother, and I was getting irritated with my mother because one of the things that's a remnant of her own childhood, or growing up in poverty, and for her, one of the big things is food, and so at this grocery store, she was like, pigging out essentially on the samples being offered, and I was getting very irritated with that. But then I thought of, how at the same time, I understand where this is coming from, and to become irritated, knowing that my mother only has a decade plus maybe to live, the horrible guilt I would feel for being upset with her over such things when they really don't matter. That in the present I can just be kind, understand where she's coming from, and not show any type of irritation. I wrote a paper many years back on a book by Roland Barthes, the French literary critic, called La Chambre Claire, about photography, and reflections on his own mother, and thinking about how that the pain of loss, and so that I don't know, the recognition that these experiences are part of us, and yet are not something that we should hold on to, because they'll hurt us. They'll cause more misery and suffering if we can't let them go. So again, I think with memories we have to have this happy medium where we accept them for what they are. They're there, by and large, for most of us, but without obsessing over them and letting them affect our actions in the present, where they generate more misery and suffering. To let things go while appreciating them for what they are. You can't keep dipping the metal end into the tea to try to recapture the past. When it happens miraculously, again, savor the moment. But to try to intentionally hold on to this is just self-defeating, and ultimately generates more misery. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks. Bye.